Now, in the modern age of contactless payments, you may be forgiven for thinking that banknotes are a thing of the past. But earlier in the week, banknotes hit the headlines again. The Bank of England is looking to replace historical figures on 5, 10, 20 and £50 notes with images of wildlife instead of historical figures. And the response proved that people still really care about cash, and crucially, that cash is still very much around. According to the Bank of England, 10 years ago, there was £59 billion in circulation. It's now £85 billion. Yes, inflation accounts for a little bit of that, but not all of it. Cash is still very much alive. And the question is why? Well, joining me to discuss this is Ron Delnevo, and he's the chair of the Payment Choice Alliance, who helps champion cash. So, Ron, why is cash very much still here and it's not dying off as we thought it would do during COVID?
Well, afternoon, Harry. Well, the truth is that there are a number of different reasons. I don't think many people are feeling particularly well off at the moment. I'm told that 40% of the UK adult population have savings of less than £1,000. So waving credit cards or any cards around isn't necessarily a good idea if you don't have that much money in the bank. So people are managing their finances better. They're having to do that, and they're doing it in many cases through using cash. And then, of course, we have groups of people in the society that we live in who don't conform to what we think is the norm. So 4 million people don't own smartphones, so they're not able to use apps in the clever way that others are. So basically, we have a situation where we've got a lot of people who are not very well off. We've got people who are not necessarily digitally enabled to participate in a cashless society, if there were one. And then, of course, we've got people who just want to exercise choice. Your last item was about women exercising choice and deciding if and when they get pregnant. And I think many people feel that choice is important in payments. And when we ask people, over 80% say that they want to retain the choice to use cash. So it's a rather more positive picture than one might have thought.
But there are lots of companies out there, and some quite well-known chains. I'm thinking of Itsu and Gales and Zizzy and a lot of the transport network, particularly if you use London Underground, who basically make it impossible to use cash. It's contactless only, and it's contactless because they find it far more convenient. First of all, the staff can't dip their hand in the till, and it's kind of cheaper and easier for them. So is cash really a genuinely useful way to make a payment if you're running a company?
Oh, it's of course, offering choice to customers is always the best route. Our biggest retailer in this country, Tesco, is very proud to support cash, and indeed their ATMs deliver over 20% of the cash delivered to the British public. Retailers don't do that for fun. They do it because they know the public appreciate choice and want to have choice in payment. So TfL, for example, behaved disgracefully when they removed choice in 2014. How is it you go to sophisticated American cities like New York and Los Angeles and you can still use cash on their buses, and yet TfL have taken the option to deprive Londoners and visitors to London of choice? It is totally and completely wrong.
But Ron, it's funny you should say that, because there's a lot of people who do travel to places like to New York or indeed Tokyo, and they go, oh my gosh, I thought these were modern cities, and they don't do contactless. So they see it the other way around. They see contactless as modern and efficient, and cash as old-fashioned, dirty and inefficient.
Well, you can use contactless in New York. I was there last year and was using contactless, but many people still choose to use cash. But in any event, the most sophisticated country in the world for payment systems is China. Yet the Chinese government, who want to control through apps and smartphones and so on, they recognize the importance of cash, and it's against the law in China not to accept cash, even though they've got Alipay and various other very sophisticated systems. They recognize that choice is important to have an inclusive society. Do we want to have an inclusive society here in the UK, or do we have one that excludes people who haven't got smartphones, excludes people who are poor, excludes people who simply want to make the choice of using cash. I would argue we want to be at least as inclusive of China. Don't you agree?
Well, one of the things that people say when they see the statistics that cash is still very much around and it's not dying off is, oh, well, it must be the black market. It's people, because in a recession, people do want to save their bills, including their tax bill. And that's why a lot of people still take cash and still want to use cash.
Well, obviously, criminality is associated whenever there's an opportunity to get rich quick. Jewelers' shops are broken into. Lead is removed from church roofs. Cables are removed from railway lines, but we don't abandon any of those activities. So the fact that there may be some minor criminality with cash shouldn't mean that the 99% or more of people who choose to use cash and are not criminals are deprived of the right of using it. We don't say people can't use jewelers' shops or churches or railways. Why should they be deprived of using cash because there's some criminality there? Cash is important to so many people, and it's very important for stability and sustainability in our society because it's the only payment method that works all the time. I was just reading today that in St. Petersburg, millions of people have been advised to use cash because all the systems have gone down. That's in Russia, the famous hacking country, and even they can't keep their systems working. So we need cash for a variety of reasons. Choice is one of them, but another.
Okay, Ron, I'm going to have to stop you there because we're coming up to the hour. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. That was Ron Delnevo, chair of the Payment Choice Alliance.